Okay, so the structure for weights and measures is all based on businesses and then their locations, and then the device type slash device programs slash inspections programs that are active at a given location. So I'm going to start with a business. We've got a couple of businesses defined in our demo system here. These business listings are really intended to be the headquarters of a business. So some big businesses like Safeway will have multiple locations in the county, 7-Eleven, that type of thing. And then some businesses are really just single location businesses. So there's a way you can just create a location and say the business is the same as the location. But our business details form, we'll just wait for that to pop up. We collect the basic information you would imagine. We collect the physical address, mailing address, contact info. Just waiting for the screen to catch up. There we go. And then down at the bottom, we have a couple of notes fields for you to keep track of, description of the business and whatever notes you like to keep about the business. So then a business has one or more locations in your county. So this, you've got an edit button, a delete button, and then the little button, I'm just trying to see if the screen's catching up, a button to the very right of the row that looks like a map pin. That shows you the locations for that business. So in this case, that Safeway has 2 locations in Shasta County. This is my demo county. And each location will have its own set of information. So I'll click on the edit button here. And when that form pops up, you'll see we keep track of who owns the location, what's the physical and mailing address of the location itself. And then we get to, just let that catch up. So we have the same description notes for a location as we do for a business. When you start categorizing the location, so we have a set of districts, and I want to talk about districts kind of after we look at the location setup, because we've done some interesting things with districts. You can assign one or more districts to a location. You can also assign a list of business types. So, that would be like grocery store, farmer's market, convenience store, gas station. And, a lot of locations, particularly Safeways and Walmarts, things like that, are going to be classified as multiple types because they go to gas station on premise and that type of thing. The districts and the types are really there to help you divvy up businesses for inspection planning purposes. So you can assign certain districts to inspectors or certain business types when you're filtering down to say, I want to go look at a particular type of business. And then I'll scroll this form all the way down. You'll see we have flags for whether this is an ag location and or a weights location. And that's just a simple filter if you want to separate things out so that your biologists, when they're looking for locations, don't see a bunch of gas stations that they don't have any interest in. And vice versa, your weights and measures folks don't necessarily need to see a bunch of grower locations.
I'm curious with the sorry, just at the bottom. I'll wait. Go ahead, John. It's not urgent.
Okay. The zone is intended to be geographic. So when we display the map view of all the businesses, this zone will attach to a area that's drawn on the map. And we have a legacy ID, it's just for tracking back to your old records for a business. Then the longitude and latitude of the location, which you'll be able to just geocode from the address, but then you can also override it by clicking on a map if sometimes the geocoder isn't really that accurate. Then for ag businesses or ag locations, we'll have some ag related information that you can enter. It's optional. It's really for your tracking purposes if you want to be able to search, ag locations based on a permit number or a license number.
Is there going to be a map little applet so we can see where the geocoder has dropped the pin?
Yep.
We can verify latitude, longitude.
Yep.
Cool.
Absolutely, and that's the piece that in the inspection tear sheet or inspection report or what we're working on right now that we're I'm going to be pushing out next week. So,
Super
and then
exciting.
lastly, for weights businesses, we keep track of cab numbers and/or cab license plates. And then these last two flags which start to tie into the registration invoicing process is whether the invoice gets sent to the business location or to the owner. And same thing for the registration certification or certificate, whether that gets mailed to the business or the owner. A lot of times, like Safeway wants all the invoices sent to their headquarters and they want the registration certs to go to the locations. Okay, so that's our setup of a...
Yeah, we do a combined registration cert and invoice. So
Okay.
I think we just leave it up to Safeway to figure out how to get their store the right thing.
Okay. Yep. In that case, if you mail out the certs with the invoice, then the flag for the invoice location will be the one that overrides.
Cool.
Okay, so then we can drill down at a location with this little scales icon to come up with all of the subprograms or device types that are at that location. So let me actually go to the other one because I have some set up already. So here is a list of everything that we do as the weights and measures group at that location. So this Safeway has retail motor fuel and petroleum. They get a gas station. They're also involved in price verification and package audits, and then they have some computing scales. And this list of what is available, you can see here. This is a fairly long list. We do have a administration screen where you could administer which device types and also kind of inspection types are active in your county. But it's a pretty long list, so you can scroll through that at your leisure. Okay, so for each one of these, this sort of represents a type of inspection that we're going to do. And some of them are device inspections. So for computing scales, we have a number of devices. And then this number inspected is the number that were inspected at the last inspection that was performed. So you can quickly tell if you didn't capture all the devices and maybe need to get out there and get one more device. And then we have number of vehicles if it's a vehicle type device like the truck mounted meter of some kind. And then we have the next inspection due date, which would be calculated from the inspection frequency, which you can manage by the device types, and the date of the last initial inspection.
The column for number inspected, that's the number that was inspected at the last inspection. Is that correct? Or is that?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, because I'm just thinking there's some businesses that will have 100 scales at the location. They'll get a new one. They'll say, can you come out and inspect the scale? We'll go inspect it. And then suddenly that column says 1 out of 101, and it looks like they are problematic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when we take a look at the device inspection, we have an inspection reason, and it's initial complaint, repair, and other. If you go out and do a single device inspection like that, would that be considered an initial inspection, or would you classify this as an other inspection?
It's a new inspection, so that inspection actually gets put into a different report than your initial annual inspection for the rest of them.
Right. And so that we'll have to get the terminology to fit correctly. But when I say the last inspection, I'm really referring to the last initial or last annual inspection.
Sure, that makes sense.
And we use that inspection reason to classify the inspection so we know which one was sort of the annual inspection.
Great, and that'll make it easier to do the reporting as well.
Good. Okay, so you can edit these programs, and you can assign district to each device type. And some of this is editable, some of it is not. Some of this is pulled from the device setup table, and some of it's calculated by the system. But some of it you can override. So if we calculate missed inspection date and you want to override that for a business, you can do that here. We then also have a list of devices. So for computing scales, we've got 5 of them, and you can actually track those 5 devices. So this is optional. A lot of counties aren't going to track every device, but if you want to, you can certainly do it here. And we have an import and export function that you can dump this to an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, if you got somewhere that's got 50 devices, you don't necessarily want to manage it on the screen here. It can be tedious clicking around and editing this. So you can export it to Excel, make all your changes, and then upload it again.
If you click import devices, does that just pull from your clipboard, or how does that work?
No, it actually lets you upload the Excel file that you downloaded.
I see.
So if I dump this out to a file, just let that catch up.
And so I guess you just ideally want to match the column headers and just don't enter anything outside the columns that are existing in there.
Yep, the key thing is we've got to have these columns in the right order, and then we gray this one out because we don't want you to edit this. So if I wanted to add another device, I just put another device in here.
And then the device ID gets automatically assigned from the program side?
Yep.
Cool.
So this will be a live test here. I actually haven't tested this upload yet.
Ooh.
There we go. So just drop that new device in there for me.
Wow.
And these two already had their IDs, so it knew to map the data in the spreadsheet to these 2 rows.
So we have this thing going where we have a lot of water meters that we're afraid are getting passed around between places. Mm-hmm. I guess this is something we can just do, exporting our device lists and making it agglomerated into our own. Is there any chance you can make like a master device list just that has all the devices put together?
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be one of the weights and measures reports that we'll have. Will be an all devices export that will show you everything that you've got registered in the system. And we're going to be asking counties to turn on a flag that will let other counties see their master device list and the device inspection history for them.
Beautiful.
So that's kind of where this is going. Yep.
Cool.
Okay, then let's get on to inspections. So there's, I think, 6 or 7 different inspection forms that DMS provides. I'll start with the device one. This covers, all of your weighing and measuring devices. So when I clicked on that inspection listing for that computing scales at this Safeway, I get a history of all the inspections that have been entered for that device type at this location. And it will tell me, when the inspection was done, what type of inspection it was, who did it, if there's a follow-up date set on it, what the follow-up date is, and how many devices or how many inspections were completed during that inspection. So I can go take a look at that form, and this should be a relatively familiar device inspection form. We have the same inspection header that shows up on every inspection, and we're still working out some of the fine points of the logic here. But the inspection interval is pulled from the device type record. So this, how many months it is until the next inspection is set in your device lookup table, and you can manage that. So it'll calculate the next inspection, assuming this is a new initial inspection. Then we have the staff, and then this is that reason code I was telling you about, whether initial or new. Other re-inspections for either place in service or if it's a complaint response.
Okay.
And
yeah,
we use the term initial.
On there, new versus initial, because new will be like initial. The first time it's ever been inspected, and initial is the first time it's been inspected that year, and they get dumped in different places. So
we have this inspection reason, but then also in the inspection results, we've got rows for initial inspections, new installs, re-inspections and others. So we have two ways to, it's the whole inspection, and then it's also each of the devices. So, you know, if you were doing a new install of a scale, you could call that another inspection or an initial inspection, but you would put the results here in new install. So we have a needs follow-up flag. This, you know, there's some validation that we have built in here. So if I put in a failure, it's going to require that I have a follow-up. Yep.
Darcy, were you trying to say something?
Yes, I'm asking, like, when we do new, it should not show that on the device numbers. Like when he asked it, it could not be added because it's a new install. I think like that. So
yeah. Okay. Well, so the new installs are you
will
saying
not be counted as like additional in the price.
Right. So, but if I go back to, for example, let me open this here. If I look at this number here, yeah, you're saying those wouldn't be included here, right? So for your purposes, if you go out to do just a new install, and there are no, you know, annual devices being inspected, what would you choose out of this list, or is there another entry you'd like to see in here?
The new install should not be there. The same like this one, new install or new.
Yeah, new or like place in service or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, when we, you know, as you peruse this, take a look and think about, you know, other suggestions we might have for this, because, you know, I'm just thinking like a place in service inspection. You know, I'm considering that a re-inspection. But I guess all this terminology came from Santa Clara County, and they're perfectly happy with it. But other counties are going to have different terminology. So those are some things we should probably, after you've had a chance to look this over a bit, we should probably have another discussion on those just to clarify.
Well, if Stan likes it that way, I'm probably wrong.
Okay. Another question. I have another question about the invoice. So when we check invoice send to location, do we have choice to check invoice send to other location, like to the primary location of Safeway or something? Because it says cert. So.
Yep. So if I go look at a Safeway location, if you
go down,
I'll just let the screen catch up here for a sec. The invoice mailing to location, if you don't check this, then it will be sent to the business owner, the headquarters.
The headquarters. So if this is unchecked, if it's checked to the location. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So a couple more things up here. We do have a field to keep track of consumer and other complaints. And it's at the inspector's discretion whether this is going to be charged a reinspection fee. And if you do select charge reinspection fee, then when this inspection is completed, it'll show up in the invoicing module to generate a reinspection invoice for it. And then these two we've copied from the old system. I'm not really sure what, if anything, counties are going to want to do in terms of tracking, you know, notices of violation or enforcement actions associated with failed inspections. So they're kind of there as placeholders to, you know, generate some discussion on what you'd like to track about the enforcement follow-ups. Then in our inspection results block, you'll see here we have two options. We can either enter just the total numbers, or if we have devices specified, we can enter results by device. Okay, so right down here, you see I added that serial number 111111. So I can go in here and click in. I can say this, you know, passed or failed. It failed over. and it's not working yet because this is something that's absolutely brand new. We just rolled this out yesterday, but that will then put a fail over here. And in fact, if I refresh the screen, it should. Save. Yeah, still have some work to do on that. So you can enter, device by device results, or if I remove this, we can just enter results directly in here as the total count.
So is there any possibility of doing sort of a mix of the two of them? Like my interest would be, you pass however many you pass, but then the ones that you fail, I'd like to enter the device details for.
Yes, but it won't actually be a hybrid. It will be the device by device results, but you can put in, the ones that failed. And then what I would suggest is we add a button that would say, set all remaining to passed.
Perfect. And so you
34 devices in here, just set them all to pass.
And so if you're using this device detail module and you have 30 devices at the location, but you only have 3 serials entered, is that going to be, you're still going to be able to enter inspections for each of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the one thing that to keep note of is when you make these device lists is you always want to have at least something in these 4 fields to identify the device. Otherwise, it makes it really hard to, understand from one inspection to the next, which is this one that failed before.
This is great.
We are writing on some.
This is great because I've been writing model and manufacturer serial number information on all my forms for as long as I've worked here, and we've never used it for anything. So finally a purpose.
And we're trying to make it, as easy as possible to use, so you can just, enter update information right here during the inspection. And, we only had 3 devices set up for this Safeway, but if you go to the Safeway and you find that they've got more, you can add new devices here.
Hi, John. So I have a question. Is this other for like the same thing in the old weight measure, like if it fails and corrected by the owner, or what? The other?
Other is a category defined by DMS.
Yeah. And
so it is the same there, Jay. Or it should be the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Though other shouldn't necessarily be corrected at colored as red, because a scale that has passed inspection can be classified as an other inspection. So like if a scale is out of tolerance at initial inspection, and then the owner repairs it, we inspect it again, then the reinspection that placed it back into service is not a service agent reinspection, so it doesn't count as a reinspection, but it counts as an other inspection.
Right. So this is where we need to get some terminology kind of cleared up because it's not entirely clear in my mind. We have the inspection reason, right, which applies to the overall inspection. Why are you out there inspecting? And there is an other there. But then we have the, per device or the per set of inspections inspection type, which is initial, new install, repair by company, or repair by owner. So I think, if you're doing a repair by owner, you would set that to repair by owner, but this other is actually an inspection result, which is the device didn't pass the inspection, but it can't be classified as an over measurement or an under measurement. Now, I don't have any great anecdotes as to when you would use other, but this applies specifically not to the type of inspection or not for the reason for inspecting it, but to the result you get from the test methodology when you applied it to that device.
Sure. Like if it was yellow tagged and we, if they try to use a scale that's not approved for use within the county, that would make it classified as other. But okay. there is just one other thing. If a scale with a given serial number has been inspected during a year, and then it gets repaired by owner, if we hit pass there, where is it going to bin that information? Because that information needs to get set as an other inspection just for DMS timekeep or inspection tracking.
So I don't know if when you say another inspection, you're talking about this other.
No, I'm talking about it's a column. No, it's when DMS tracks the number of inspections we do per device type. If we inspect, say there's a deli scale, we find it's inaccurate. The owner fiddles around with it a little bit. We re-inspect it, and we find it to pass. Then it would count as 2 inspections, one of which goes into this report as a failed inspection, and one of which goes onto the report as other inspection.
Now, those wouldn't be in the same inspection, though, right? Because you would go and you would inspect it and it would fail. Then that would be an initial inspection or a complaint inspection. And then the owner would repair it and you would come back and do another inspection on it, just on that one device. Which is like a place of service.
No. Say we go out there and there's meat chunks caught in the scale that's causing it to fail. We'll say, clean your scale. They'll clean it in 10 seconds because we just got to pull the meat chunks out of there, and then we'll re-inspect it. It still should, for DMS reporting, count as 2 inspections.
Okay. Yeah, we really don't have a way of handling that with this inspection form because, you can't put the same device on 2 rows in this grouping here. So I think what I would recommend is you would fill out this entire form with all of your inspection results, but with that device as a failure.
And then just do another inspection the same day.
And then you do another inspection on the same date. And this reason would be other. And then you would put that as repair by owner and then passed, and just that one device in there. And that way you get credit for the 2 inspections, but they would have to be on 2 different forms because we can't record 2 results for one device on this inspection form.
Okay. And then
Does that make sense? Definitely.
The other element of it is just the reporting for when you're dumping things out for the CMR, the county monthly report. It's repair by owner passed. Like I said, it doesn't go into a past inspection column. It goes into an other inspection column. So, but I don't know if you're working on your export module for sending data out to the CMR yet.
It's what's coming up next. Yeah, we're right now working on the inspection report, be able to print out an inspection report from each of these inspection types, and then we'll be moving on to the annual and the monthly DMS reports.
Okay, well, let's not get into the weeds with it now, and just something to keep in mind when you're figuring out what gets dumped where.
Yep. Well, we're working off of the setup that Stan helped us put together all those years ago. So once we pull all the logic out there and get that reproduced, I think we would probably be in good shape, but I'll make sure that we write up some documentation on how those reports are completed. So, you can check that over.
Yep. Once again, I'm glad to defer to Stan on it.
So John, that happens quite frequently where they do basically 2 inspections at the same facility on the same day, where the issue is corrected and then they re-inspect it and pass it. So just yesterday, Manny was out doing a bunch of scales at a landscaping type place. And so there was so much dirt and stuff in the scales, they failed, and then they cleaned the scales and then they passed. And then even doing petroleum audits, they don't have the right signage up, and so it fails, but then they correct it and put the signage up and we pass it. So that's very, very common to do to re-inspect it while you're still there while they correct things, which is better than having to go back. It's time saving for us if they can correct it, but we do want to count that they have failed and have taken action to correct it and then are now accurate.
Is there any possibility of where the trash can is next to your device, dupe device for this inspection, and then you can just add a second inspection for that same device?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm also thinking about some way to flag one or more devices and say re-inspect now. When you do the inspection report or the inspection certificate for this inspection, how would that be represented on that tear sheet? Would it would the tear sheet just reflect the pass, or would it also reflect the failure?
It would reflect both. So what we write on our current report is one scale sealed after correction. So that implies that there was a failed inspection and then a re-inspection that it passed on. The way that gets processed into the CMR depends on whether the repair was done by a service agent or by the owner. And they get dropped into two different bins on two different reports accordingly. So, and on either of them, the initial failed inspection goes into an initial fail. And then depending on whether it was repaired by the owner, it would get put as an other inspection on that device's report, report B. If it was repaired by a service agent, it would get put into a service agent passed in column on report A.
Okay. Yep. So I think we have everything we need here, and I think your suggestion is a good one. Then is just to, for anything that's failed, you can hit a button to duplicate the row, and then you would put it in as either repair by owner or service agent, and then you would set it to pass, and then it would show.
Two forms would be very cumbersome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even if you have to do that on 3 different devices, you can do that all on this form. I'll just need to make sure that the classification is driven by this inspection type for the device, which I'm pretty sure it is.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome.
Now that
okay,
we're pulling the you from your tour here.
I have a question about invoicing. So usually we invoice once in a year, but for taxi in the old system, we invoice them when the taxi comes for inspection. So do we have options like to invoice, or we have to invoice everything once?
No, you have both options. You can do what we call batch invoicing, and generally you'll do that once a year. But then you can do individual invoicing, which you would do for re-inspections, for non-commercial inspections, if you charge for those in taxis and whatnot.
And so for any given business, is there an option to exclude it from batch invoicing? Say we have a producer who only is open certain years. Well, if they're not going to use their scale in that year, we don't want to send them a default invoice.
Yep, absolutely.
Good.
Great.
Yeah, that will be one. Remember, I said we have all the different types of business types. That will be one of the business types that you can flag a business as. And then when you're preparing the batch, you just say, exclude these business types.
Cool. Okay. One other thing I was looking at is we have some other inspections that aren't associated with device types. I don't know if you want to show me how the petroleum thing works and how the.
Yep.
That'd be cool.
So let me close these, get back to my Safeway. So we have a retail motor fuel inspection form. Actually, that's pulling up the wrong one. My bad. But there is a different form that we have for retail motor fuel. It just didn't pull the right one up when I clicked on it. We also have the petroleum inspection form, which is for your gallons accepted, rejected, and so forth. And we have the price verification inspection form, which is similar to devices, but it's overcharges and undercharges. And then a listing of all the purchased items. If you enter, each item on a separate row, you can keep track of the actual items you purchased. And then we also have a separate inspection form for package audits. And then I don't have it here, but let me go ahead and add it. We have
Remaster.
Tests. That's the one I was looking at.
Remaster, yeah.
Let's Pretty simple. It's basically the same thing as the price verification. And then it has the bulk commodities section, and it doesn't have the individual items, obviously.
So wait, sorry. I'm trying to get my head around this form. Can you scroll back up here?
Mm-hmm.
I guess this is maybe not what the form I was thinking it was going to be for. We'll occasionally do test purchases where if we say we get a complaint that's saying that that this aluminum company this recycling company is buying aluminum at an incorrect rate. We'll try to sell them some aluminum, and then we'll see how much they actually gave us back for it. I guess that's your amount for overcharge and undercharge rather than your number for amount. Okay. I see.
Yeah, you can do it as a sale or a non-sale, just a pretend transaction.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I just wasn't processing your rows there. Cool. One other thing for the petroleum inspections, I'm sure Stan has some system worked out for this. We have to report each quarter all of the petroleum inspections that were done that were initial inspections for that quarter. Mm-hmm. Is there a way of dumping out all those inspections into some sort of list?
I haven't designed such a thing yet, but I certainly have the intention of being able to do that. Is there
the form that we generate from our current program, and that it's very straightforward. It just says the date of inspection and the location of the business.
Right.
Yeah.
So in our design write-up, we have a couple of weights and measures exports that are just listings of inspections. So it may be that just using the filter on that report for the date range and the inspection type may be sufficient. But as soon as we get working on those, I'll make sure to connect with you. And if you got a format that TMS accepts now, I'd rather just copy the existing format than try and introduce something new to them.
Sure. And the only other thing about that export is that it has to be, in order for us to invoice for it, it has to be the first inspection of the year. So say we go to a business in the first quarter, find some issues, we'll invoice for that inspection. But then if we go back in the second quarter, we don't want that inspection to get dropped into the invoicing list.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds like it would be a good candidate for a custom report.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, Darajay, did I interrupt you?
Yeah, I didn't see Waymaster, and as Ben said, for petroleum we only have to track the initial inspection. We don't worry about the other inspection. So when we enter, if we enter them initial, we have to track that one.
Okay. Let me show you the Waymaster inspection. It's one of the lesser used ones now, but Waymaster certs. So we do have a separate form for the Waymaster certs.
Sure, yeah. That's it. Good.
For violations, are you going to have default violations that we can enter, or is it going to be more of a type your own thing?
We're going to have a reference list of the BMP codes, and then a way for you to import a list of county ordinance codes. And so when you enter your violations, and there's some validation that relates the number of violations to the number of failed devices for device inspections, but for each violation you've entered up here, you're going to have to pick a code section down in the code section box.
Music to my ears. Just what I wanted to hear.
Good.
Okay. Unless you have anything else for Waymaster Derge?
No.
So we also have another report we need to dump out for DMS, that's our admin fee summary. For each device that gets invoiced for registration, we pay a fraction to DMS, to the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want us biannually to be generating a report of all the devices that we have received invoicing for, that we were paid a registration fee for, and so that we can remit the admin fee to them. Do you think there's going to be any way of getting that done in here?
Yep, absolutely. The invoicing module does calculate the administrative fee, and when payments are made, it splits payments into, the admin fee gets paid first if the payment is short of the invoice total, and then the remainder is allocated to the reducing the invoice amount due. So we do keep track of both the administrative fees charged and the administrative fees paid, and so we'll be perfectly happy to produce that administrative fee report. Again, if you have something that you use now, if you don't mind, just shoot me a copy and we'll use that. Because I know Stan generated that report, but I don't think we had it actually generated directly out of the daily. So it'd be good to have a template to go by.
Okay, yeah, I think we have it as an Excel file that's we just drop our numbers into. I don't know how easy that is for you to convert to a form. But,
super easy. We're just, you've seen most of the exports from the system come out in Excel, so we'll just generate it as an Excel file using the same format that you have.
Love it. Okay, thank you.
So the piece that I don't have to show you right now is the whole inspection planning component, and that's where the mapping ties in. So you'll have a place to go to filter down to inspections that are coming up due within a date range, and you can filter it by districts and business types, and then you can essentially select business locations that you plan to inspect and plot them on a map. So that'll be stuff that we'll hopefully have the draft to show you maybe next week, or it might be the week after. It depends on how things go this coming week.
Great. Yeah, I've been doing this kind of a similar thing, but just doing it on my maps on Google. It's very janky, but the way I've been structuring it is I flag all the businesses, use the default color for businesses that are yet to be inspected, change it to red if they are past inspection or done, and then yellow if they need reinspection. Is that going to be a possibility on there?
Yep, that's exactly the kind of scheme I have in mind that I'm working on the map right now.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And also, in terms of, say I went with a coworker and we both went to the same business, we're both going to come back at the end of the day and be entering information on the same business into the same place. How does it work in terms of multiple users accessing the same information simultaneously?
It's basically whatever order you hit the save button in. So if you're entering inspection data, obviously you'll be entering it in separate inspection forms. There's really no way. Well, if you were to open an inspection form and save it, and then the other user were to log in and open that same inspection form, and you were both typing into that same inspection form, whoever saves last would overwrite whatever the other person had saved. So, we don't have any sort of ability to have two people concurrently work on the same form. But is that something you would expect to happen, or would you each be filling out your own inspection reports?
No, they'd each be filling out their own inspection reports. I guess the more likely scenario is just that if they're editing some element of the business information itself,
right?
Maybe I did price verification and someone else did scales. If one of us goes to change the price, the business information, it's not going to mess up the rest of the data storage for the inspection, is it?
Well, it's susceptible to that one thing that all websites are susceptible to, which is if you both open the form at the same time, and then you edit something and save it, and then the other person edits something and saves it, their older version of the form is going to overwrite your edits. And that's kind of just the nature of web applications. Is they're stateless as far as knowing, what two different users are doing at the same time.
Okay, and really the chances of any two people working on the same business at the same time are pretty infinitesimally small. then we can record.
You know, one thing that we do stress in our trainings, and you know, this is, you probably heard it a lot with web applications. Everyone wants the timeout to be set to 12 hours or 2 days, so they never time out. But the purpose of the timeout is to remind people that the web is transactional. And if you open something and leave it sitting on your screen for hours and hours and hours, and then you hit the save button, you're going to wipe out everybody else's work on that record. It's just the transactional nature of the web. Open a form, make the change you need to make, and then save it and close it.
Sure.
So, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about here because I don't, but if we're using this and I guess we're not using this to say we're doing price verification and there's like 3 of us in the same store, right? So that information isn't going in here until we're done, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You can enter it while you're doing it, but if you had 3 people working in the same store, you know, all working on the same PV inspection, then you would just nominate one person to be the record keeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
and I don't see any possibility of us entering information into the form as we're doing the inspection anyway.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. And you know, if those forms are in here and we're filling them out, and then, you know what I mean, we're in different sections of the store and we're each filling out this information. If it's not downloading until we get back to the office, we just need to, you know what I mean, coordinate that so we're not all doing it at the same time. But
Yeah.
never mind. Yeah.
Although in that instance, you'd really, you know, even if all 3 of you were doing price verifications, you'd probably fill out 3 inspection forms in this system, just so that we keep track of who the inspector was for, you know, certain results.
Right. And the other question there, are we getting a bunch of sweet iPads that we can actually enter data directly into the database as we work, or I feel like we're still doing paper forms?
Yep. Well, you know, there's many things ahead in the lifespan of CalCATS, and one of the ones that's going to be coming out next year will be a mobile app, kind of like CalPeats, where you can work offline and synchronize your data and everything. Something optimized for the iPad with, you know, a barcode scanner and all that good stuff.
Ben, you already have your sweet laptop you can do that with.
True.
iPads are just future e-waste. Paper is compostable. It's greener to use paper.
Oh.
Being like a true environmentalist right there.
Thank you, John.
Are we done with the weights?
There's one thing about the route decks. You know, I don't know how your route decking system is going to be, your, you know, management of routing. The one thing that we have in our system that I do kind of like is we can archive previously issued route decks, so we can see when it was done, who did it, any notes that they may have made on that issuance of the route deck. If you can't do it on the program, you know, we can do that on an Excel sheet, no problem, but it'd be nice to have built in. Okay.
When we get to that point, let's take a look at the route planner, and you know, we certainly have the route planning function, and it would be fairly easy to have some type of archival for it, that, you know, once you've got your you call it a route deck, but once you got your plan set up for a given time period, to be able to save that plan and then annotate it as you work on it.